A review into what many have called the wrongful extradition of Hassan Diab released its conclusion today. It found no rules were broken, and the review says federal prosecutors acted ethically and within the law. Diab was extradited to France in 2014, where he spent 3 years facing accusations related to a 1980 bombing outside a Paris synagogue. The CBC's David Cochran has covered this story extensively, and he joins us now. David, the external review says the department did nothing wrong. What were the key findings?
Yeah, Katie, this is essentially an exoneration of the Department of Justice. At least that's the findings of Murray Siegel, the former Deputy Attorney General of Ontario, who did this review. And he deals with 3 big allegations that were made by Hassan Diab and his supporters, and that Canada was overzealous in helping France. That when the French case was about to collapse, it was Canada who directed France to replace discredited handwriting evidence. And while that was happening, Canadian lawyers got court delays to buy France time to do that work. And amongst other things that Canada did for France was a fingerprint comparison with Hassan Diab's fingerprints and the fingerprints of the man suspected of a 1980 bombing outside of a Paris synagogue. And when those fingerprints did not match, those were never shared with Hassan Diab or his lawyers. Now, Siegel's review finds that all of this did in fact happen, but he concludes that it was all appropriate because this is all permissible in an extradition hearing. The argument being that an extradition hearing is not a trial and different standards of evidence and conduct apply. So he says the allegations made by the Diab defense team were without merit. He concluded that the criticism has no merit and that counsel for government acted in a manner that was ethical and consistent with the law and with their ethical policies. Now, he did make some suggestions on how things could be improved going forward, including sharing evidence with the defense, even when there is no legal obligation to do it, and to seek assurance of a speedy trial once someone is extradited so they don't languish in a French prison like Hassan Diab did. But when I spoke to Murray Siegel today, despite everything that has happened to Hassan Diab, he said that the Extradition Act is working. Diab was treated fairly. This outcome was just unfortunate.
So how are Diab and how are his supporters reacting to this?
Well, it was a strange day for Hassan Diab, who spent 3 years in a French prison with no charge and no trial and was just told that the system worked perfectly. So he's not a guy who gets super emotional in public, but he was quite angry, and he called this report a whitewash. This was Hassan Diab earlier today.
We boycotted the external review because we believed that it would amount to a whitewash exercise. It is profoundly upsetting to see our concerns and fears materializing.
You know, Diab's lawyer Donald Bain was also with him today, and a year ago when this review was launched, Bain predicted that the findings would be that the Justice Department did nothing wrong. There would be ways that things could improve, but really the blame would lie with France. He felt that the terms of reference rigged that outcome, and that is essentially where this report landed today, and Don Bain is quite upset. Here's what Hassan Diab's lawyer said.
This is a report that excuses all the conduct of the Department of Justice International Assistance Group lawyers who did this case. It defends the lack of disclosure of evidence of innocence. It endorses all of the troubling aspects of the current extradition law and system in Canada. And it supports the decisions of Canadian courts that the evidence of guilt was reliable enough to deny Dr. Diab's liberty and to justify a trial in France.
So, Katie, they're obviously quite frustrated with the outcome of this review. They have not dropped their calls for a public inquiry. Those are being backed by groups like Amnesty International, the BC Civil Liberties Association. They are all still supporting that. And what's interesting today, Katie, is that Hassan Diab, despite everything that happened to him, has said he didn't want to sue the Canadian government. He didn't want a lawsuit. He didn't want compensation. He just wanted the extradition laws changed. Today, they say they're reconsidering that decision. And now the possibility of a lawsuit is on the table.
So what's the government saying?
Well, David Lametti inherited this file. The extradition happened under the Conservatives. The review was ordered by Jody Wilson-Raybould, but he says he accepts the findings that nothing wrong happened here, but that there could be some improvement in how his department handles extraditions. Here's the Justice Minister.
Obviously, I have a great deal of sympathy for Dr. Diab and for his family and what they went through. Nobody wants to see anybody sit in prison in a foreign country for that period of time, waiting for their case to be tried. And so Murray Siegel has given us a good series of recommendations to think about in order to make the the extradition process more transparent, in order to make it more understandable to Canadians, and also to improve the process so that hopefully we can do things at our end during the extradition process that will prevent this kind of situation happening again.
And you know, Katie, there's probably a sigh of relief in the Department of Justice for another reason, because this report lands right in the middle of the Meng Wanzhou extradition, the former Huawei executive who's being held on pending extradition to the United States. If a report had landed saying Canada's extradition system was a mess, that would resonate in Ottawa, in Vancouver, and in Beijing. That did not happen, so that's a comfort, I think, to the Department of Justice, but certainly not for Hassan Diab and his family.
David, thank you.
Got it.
The CBC's David Cockram.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video. Thanks for watching.